Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Trenny Gibson? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoy this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Trenny Lynn Gibson was born on August 17, 1960, and was raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. She lived in a house on Whittower Drive with her father, Robert Sr., her mother, Hope, her brother, Robert Jr., and her sister, Tina. As a teenager, Trenny attended Bearden High School and worked in a cafeteria at a local mall. She had dreams of attending the University of Tennessee to pursue a degree in landscape architecture. Her interest in the outdoors was intense. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On Friday, October 8, 1976, Trenny's high school horticulture class had a field trip scheduled, but the students did not know the destination. The class was taught by a man named Wayne Dunlap. After Trenny and about 35 to 40 of her classmates boarded the bus for the trip, Wayne announced the destination as the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This park is in Tennessee and North Carolina and comprises over 500,000 acres. It attracts more visitors than any other national park in the United States. The Appalachian Trail cuts through at the park's highest mountain, called Clingman's Dome. In such a large national park featuring many ways to get lost and 95% forest, it's surprising that Trenny's teacher, Wayne, was the only chaperone for so many students. Furthermore, that day the weather was rainy and cold. Trenny was seated in the back of the bus with a senior named Robert Simpson. Robert was friends with Trenny's older brother, Robert Jr. Trenny had never been away from her family for an entire day before, so Robert Jr. asked Robert to look after Trenny during the field trip. It would appear as though Trenny was not prepared for the weather. She was wearing a blue and white striped sweater, a blue blouse, blue jeans, and blue sneakers. She was also wearing an expensive diamond ring and a sapphire pendant. As her attire selection was insufficient for the conditions, Robert loaned her his heavy brown and orange plaid wool jacket. At around noon, the bus arrived at the Clingman's Dome parking lot in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. This is about 1,000 feet south of an observation tower. Before setting the students loose in the park, their teacher Wayne issued instructions to them. They were to hike on the Forney Ridge Trail from the Clingman's Dome parking lot to a point called Andrews Bald. Here, they were to turn around and come back, which would be a round trip of about 3.6 miles. Along the way, they were to pay attention to the plant life. At no point were they to deviate from the Forney Ridge Trail, and they were due back at the bus by 3:30 p.m. At 12:30 p.m., the students and Wayne started to hike. The bus driver stayed with the bus. The students separated into groups as some students hiked faster than others. Trenny and Robert stayed together and successfully hiked to Andrews Bald. After they ate lunch there, Trenny was ready to head back. Robert was content to stay at Andrews Bald for a little while longer, so Trenny started her hike to the bus alone at about 1:30 p.m. She caught up with a few other students who were also on the way back to the bus. After spending a short time with this group, Trenny continued ahead of them. A few other students, who were stopped on the trail and resting, asked Trenny to sit with them for a while, but she kept moving. After she progressed along the trail a short distance, the same group of students noticed Trenny crouched on the side of the trail as if she was looking at something. This was not far from the Clingman's Dome parking lot. At 2:50 p.m., Trenny walked off the right side of the trail. Not long after this, a female student who had been in that group became perplexed after seeing that there was nowhere to exit the trail where Trenny had been crouched. There was dense undergrowth as well as rocks and a small creek, but there was no trail there. The student received no response after yelling for Trenny. She asked a male student who approached the area if he had seen Trenny, but he indicated that he had not seen her. These two students assumed that Trenny must have continued down the trail toward the bus. At 3:30 p.m., all the students except for Trenny had returned to the bus. Robert Simpson was asked if he knew where Trenny was. He explained how he had hiked to Andrews Bald with her, but she had left before him. Robert decided to spend time tracking a bear alone. Wayne and one student went back to the trail to look for Trenny as the others remained on the bus. At 4:03 p.m., after not having success, Wayne contacted the National Park Service using a CB radio and reported that Trenny was missing. The authorities arrived at 4:30 p.m. The bus departed from the parking lot at Clingman's Dome as Wayne stayed behind to assist in the search effort. Several volunteers were in the area by 6:30 p.m. Weather conditions made the search challenging. For example, it was raining heavily, there was a lot of wind, and fog was in the area. A can of beer that was partially filled, as well as cigarette butts, were found at the spot on the trail where Trenny had crouched and exited. Tracking dogs picked up Trenny's scent at the summit of Clingman's Dome, where the observation tower was. The dogs continued tracking to a paved road about 1.6 miles away at a place called Collins Gap. More cigarette butts were found on the shoulder of this road, which matched the brand found where Trenny exited the trail. On November 1, 1976, just over 3 weeks after Trenny disappeared, the search was discontinued. Additional searches were conducted in 1977 and in 1981. They were also unsuccessful. No sign of Trenny has ever been found. It seems likely that she did not survive. In a tragic twist, several of her family members also died young. Her brother, Robert Jr., died in 2000 at the age of 42. Her father, Robert Sr., died 4 years later at the age of 67, and her sister Tina died in 2016 at the age of 54. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. There is quite a bit of evidence that supports the theory that Trenny did not run away. For example, her family members said she would never do this. Trenny left her purse in her mother's vehicle, and at home, she left her clothing and $200 in cash. In her bank account, which was never accessed after her disappearance, Trenny had saved about $1,000. If Trenny did want to run away, she could have done so at any time. Why would she select a field trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park when she could have simply had someone pick her up at home, school, or work? The teacher of the horticulture class, Wayne Dunlap, did not reveal the destination of the field trip until the students were on the bus. If Trenny did plan on having someone pick her up in order to start a new life, how did she know where she was going? Did someone follow the bus all the way from the high school to the Clingman's Dome parking lot? Even if a person did this, how would they have known the layout of the park in order to find Trenny, and why would they have waited so long to make contact? Trenny disappeared just 40 minutes before the field trip was over. Based on the poor weather conditions, Trenny believed the field trip was going to be canceled. She was surprised when she found out from a fellow student that the field trip was still happening. When Trenny exited her mother's vehicle, she walked directly to the bus at the school. There was no opportunity to communicate with any type of accomplice, and of course, Trenny didn't find out where they were going until after she boarded the bus. So even if she could have communicated, it would not have helped. Trenny wanted her mother to be a chaperone on the field trip, but her mother was unable to clear her schedule. If Trenny was planning on being picked up to start a new life, why did she want her mother to be on the trip with her? Item number 2. In October 1975, a young man named Kevin Bowman tried to break into the Gibson family residence. Trenny's mother, Hope, terminated the confrontation by shooting him in the foot. Kevin survived and was charged. Ultimately, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years in a juvenile detention facility. Kevin had made threats, saying that he would harm Trenny after being released, which made him look like a potential suspect. As it turns out, Kevin had an alibi for the time of the disappearance. He was in class at Bearden High School. Item number 3. Some people have wondered about the possible involvement of Robert Simpson in Trenny's disappearance. He said that he had spent some time tracking a bear after Trenny started her way back to the bus, but none of his classmates could corroborate this story, and no bear came forward to say, "Hey, this Robert guy was following me." Trenny always had a thick comb in her possession. This comb was found on the dashboard of Robert Simpson's vehicle. His explanation was that Trenny gave it to him to keep for her. Robert allegedly made a bizarre comment to one of the members of the Gibson family. He said, quote, "If Kevin Bowman has Trenny, he will kill her. If he does not have her, I think she must have run off with some blank hitchhiker," unquote. The blank is a word that rhymes with thorny and refers to someone who is highly motivated to engage in sexual activity. As I mentioned, Kevin Bowman had an alibi. Despite the fact that some people are suspicious of Robert Simpson, he was not near Trenny when she disappeared. Trenny had actually passed by other students to get to the area of the trail where she vanished. No one saw Robert pass them. There was no way he could have been with her when she disappeared. Item number 4. When Trenny went on the field trip, she was wearing a diamond ring and a sapphire pendant. These items were not only expensive, she had received them as gifts for Christmas and her birthday. Undoubtedly, they had sentimental value to her. Reportedly, a female student in the sophomore class at Bearden High School was found to be in the possession of these 2 pieces of jewelry. She did not offer any explanation as to how this happened. The student promised to return these items to the Gibson family, but never did. In my opinion, if this report is true, this is one of the most important pieces of evidence in this case. It demands an explanation. How did this happen? Did Trenny drop the jewelry? Did someone take it from her? I would think that finding out the answers to these questions would have been a top priority for investigators, which is why I'm skeptical about this report. Did this really happen? If it didn't, it wouldn't be the first item that was reported incorrectly in this case. Item number 5. A few tracking dogs appeared to reach a consensus about where Trenny had traveled. They followed her scent from the observation tower to a road about 1.6 miles away. Maybe she walked from the tower to the road and someone picked her up in a vehicle. This could have been voluntary or involuntary. Cigarette butts were found on the road, which matched those found where Trenny was last spotted. It's possible that Trenny ran off with someone or was abducted, but why would the accomplice or perpetrator have met her at the side of the trail as the cigarette butts suggest? Why would the person have been smoking during such a critical time? And if they were a smoker, what are the chances that they would have been able to make a physically demanding hike? If Trenny left the area in a motor vehicle, it's more likely that she made her way to the road on her own. Now moving to my final item, number 6. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. I think that Trenny Gibson was eager to make her way back to the bus after reaching Andrews Bald. She passed a few of her classmates and did not stop with them to rest. She appeared to be highly motivated. At some point, her attention was captured by something on the trail, and she stopped to investigate. Maybe she wandered off the trail looking to investigate further. Another possibility is that she exited the trail to take a shortcut back to the Klingman's Dome parking lot. Other students said that she exited to the right, which would have placed her on a more direct route to the parking lot, albeit over challenging terrain. Either way, Trenny left the trail and became lost. Hiking at a good pace with confidence that she was going in the right direction only created more distance between her and safety. Trenny died from exposure in an area that was never adequately searched. It's also possible that wildlife moved or destroyed her remains, so these searchers would never have found her. Another decent theory in this case is that Trenny wandered to the road and met a bad actor, like she was picked up by someone who later killed her. This is not as likely as the dying of exposure theory, but it would explain the scent that was tracked by the dogs. Now moving to my final thoughts. There has been a good deal of criticism directed at the teacher in this case because one chaperone for 35 to 40 students is clearly insufficient. I agree that more chaperones would have been ideal, but in reality, this was not a difficult or dangerous hike. About 12 million people visit the Great Smoky Mountains National Park every year, and fatalities are extremely rare. I think the lesson learned in this case is how it's impossible to eliminate all risk. Literally or figuratively, sometimes people go off the trail and create a mountain of despair. Those are my thoughts in the case of Trenny Gibson. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.